real terror. And he goes to his mother and he said, "You know that library book you made me read?" And his mother said, "Yes." He said, "It was quite a book. It was amazing. It just opened up whole new horizons. I mean, it changed my whole life." And the mother said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, don't give me another one." And that's the reality that we have, that people say, "Don't tell me about these horrible facts because it will be too much to bear." But we need to be able to look at those facts, and we need to be able to look at other facts too. It's 35 years ago I first got involved in the pro-life movement. Vera Fedoruk and I were laughing about that just at the doorway. At that time, I said, in 40, it'll take us 40 years, 2 generations, to change, to be able to achieve what we now would call a culture of life. It's been 35 years and we're still fighting that. But we do need to look at something. We need to look at one of the reasons as to why we haven't done it. One of the reasons why we haven't been able to achieve what we've needed to achieve is because we rely on volunteers. And volunteers, as you well know, and I appreciate volunteers tremendously, can only give you so much of their time. And in the changing nature of our society, one of the hard parts about the changing nature of our society is that the vast bulk of those volunteers that were able to build and sustain the pro-life movement were women who now are in the workforce, who still have families, but who now are in the workforce. And so they cannot juggle one more thing. One of the hard parts is for ourselves, too, is to be able to recognize that it would seem for many of us that we're suffering from battle fatigue. And it's a hard, hard thing to be able to keep fighting, literally, day in, day out, and year in and year out. And then lastly, a lot of people say we're not just fatigued, whereas one person said so eloquently, we're idea'd out. What are we going to do if this avenue and that avenue and perhaps that corridor of power has been closed to us? I never believed that we are called to despair. I believe seriously that we are to be, as the late John Paul the Great was called, a witness to hope. And we have to be a witness to hope because we're called to be able to realize what it is that we can do. How many times have we been told, "Shut up and lie down. You've lost, and that's all there is to it." I come from an Irish background, and when the Irish were still under the heel of the British, we were all crop sharers, and we were told, "Croppy, lie down." And I don't know how often that would resonate when a pro-abortion would say, "You lost." Why don't you know you lost? It's because we haven't lost. We've lost battles, but we haven't lost the war. It's true. As Sir Philip Sidney said, "I am bruised but not beaten. I am bloodied but not slain. I shall lay me down to bleed a while and rise to fight again." Now how shall we fight? How do we want to be able to achieve, to build, to sustain a victorious and indeed triumphant culture of life? I think there's a number of different things that we need to look at and need to look at honestly and critically. I was very glad to see Edward and Kathleen up here because one of the main things we need to look at is to be able to recognize that we need to invest time, energy, and money within the whole youth sector of the pro-life movement. And I stand here today because people invested time, energy, and money in me from the time I was 15 on. Serious time, serious energy, and serious money. The kind of training that I got cost money. I can remember showing up at conferences, somebody had given me a plane ticket and I'd go there, and somebody else would put me up at the house, and somebody else would pay my way into the conference. And I went to England one time with $20 in my pocket. And John Smeaton was at the International Pro-Life Conference, and I said, "Oh, you wouldn't remember me, but I remember you. You were at the table at this big conference in London, and I walked in, I had $20 in my pocket, 20 Canadian dollars, and I decided to come there and go to this International Pro-Life Conference." He said, "Yeah, I do remember you. We all thought you were nuts." But they put me up, and it was good training. I would posit to you that you need to be a lot more serious about the youth work and the kind of training that we have that is actually available to us. And here's some of the challenges that I would put before you. Currently, we do have the National Campus Life Network, and it's an amazingly powerful and indeed interesting group. It's also usually broke. And one of the problems that it's broke is that young people don't have time to raise money. They don't have time to raise money on the campuses, and that's not what they should be doing. It's not at all what they should be doing. What we need to do is to commit to be able to give them the substantial funds so that they can hire professional organizers. If you look at why University Christian Fellowship is still going, if you look at why various youth activities are still going, it's because of the professionalization of the organizers. We have lots of incredibly dynamic and indeed well-formed young people who could be great organizers, but they have to eat. Eating is a great habit. It really is a great habit. And they have to keep not only some food in the cupboards, but they have to keep the banks off their back too with the student loans. And the reality is, I would say to you, can Hamilton Right to Life commit several things? One, why don't you have a full-time organizer at McMaster and Mohawk? A full-time youth organizer for your university, because they're cheap at the price. I can tell you, they are cheap at the price. But when you consider you have tens of thousands of young people coming in each and every year, I would say to you that one of your major responsibilities is to say, I will have some of the brightest young men or young women being able to each and every single semester be able to activate, motivate, and sustain the pro-life voice on those campuses. That, to me, would make a great deal of sense. It would make a great deal of sense to say it's one of the hardest things to keep high school students groups going. You know why? Because they're transient. And that's the beauty of youth. Can you be able to commit to say, what does it take to be able to have within this region a full-time organizer just for the high school groups? And then, if you want to be able to see how volunteers can be able to be brought together, that's a powerful and astonishing thing. Secondly, I think we need to be able to understand that the new media really isn't that new anymore. This summer, I'm in a very small parish in Peterborough. This summer I decided to sort of kickstart my youth group. I only have 300 families. My mother's from that parish. I've related to everybody in the parish. Well, not everybody. 75% of the people in that parish, my mother said. And 3 of my brothers and sisters married into that parish, so we're related to the other 25%. I'm so well known that 2 older women were talking outside the door my second Sunday, and one said, "Have you known Father Tom for long?" And the other said, "No, I've known his mother, we went to school together." "Yes, but have you known him for long?" "Oh, I've known him forever. I've known him since he was stupid." So we decided to have a youth group. And I hired somebody for the youth group. And I thought, I'm going to be on the cutting edge of technology. So we got all of our young people's emails. They're not using email anymore. Everybody's on Facebook. And now they've all migrated to Twitter. I have no idea what they're doing. However, I don't need to. I don't need to at all. We went ahead and we hired somebody to be able to set up a website. We hired the people to be able to do it. And you know the ones we hired? The sharpest 16-year-olds we could find. Okay? And they were cheap at the price. They were. Because you don't need to know everything. You need to know who knows what you need to know. That's all you need. You need to know who knows what you need to know. Who do you want to reach? I'm all for hard copy newsletters. I'm with the Priest for Life. Copies of our newsletter at the back. But the people that we want to reach, the people that are going to be having these abortions, don't care that much about hard copy newsletters. What you need, however, is to be able to use the personally selected media that is the reality of our age. What is your website like? Who are you going to pay to be able to make a really good website? Because volunteers are great, but who are you going to pay to really set up and run a really good website? Some kind of website with good links that people will keep coming back to again and again. It doesn't have to be all original, but it has to be part of the reality of the media change within our society, because that is how people are going to be able to see what we want them to see. The other reality is this. For a long time, I've been trying to get people to understand that you need to have those kinds of pictures on the internet.